Okay, here we have a harp sent in from a customer wondering, can we fix this? Now, I am not a formally trained harp maker or fixer, but in the past few years I have undertaken building a few harps, fixing a few harps, and just by looking at what the instrument is, having a little common sense, I think we can fix this. Now, what I'm seeing here, first off, the most obvious thing that needs fixed on this harp is this trigger here. This trigger should not be out here at an angle. It needs to be more at a 90-degree angle, or could be a little bit over, could be a little bit under. We'll just see how it throws when we get it straightened out. So one of the things I'm thinking of here is I need to get this reed and this trigger reestablished here without breaking it. I'm going to try to cold bend it. If it feels like it doesn't want to cold bend, anytime you're working with spring steel, if it feels like it does not want to bend, don't cold bend it. The other thing we're gonna look at, and I'm going to do this first, is it looks like when they crimp this, it bowed the entire frame. That is not right. We don't want that frame to be bowed like that. We want a little bit flatter of a frame. The reed is also sitting very far in front, and the gaps are large and askew. Now, this is not a super high quality jaw harp. This is marked England, and the harps that were marked England do vary in quality. However, I am feeling a little bit of springiness left of that, so let's see what we can do with this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to see if we can straighten this out. Now, tools we're going to be using is these are pliers that I have annealed and worked, and I'll post a link up above to my video on annealing pliers, because any tool that you anneal, it takes the hardness out, and you can work them with just plain tools, a file. Now, if you were to try to file into a pair of pliers like this, into a good pair of CTs like this, you would not be able to file them. It would ruin your file because they're very hard, very tough steel. But if you heat them up to glowing orange and let them cool down, you can work it to any shape you want. And that's just the process of annealing, and I'll put a link up above. Now, looking at this, I'm wondering how I'm gonna get this dish out. Now, I've got a couple different anvils. Here's the Gorka Rajasthani anvil. We have a flat anvil here that was made by a friend of mine who passed away. This is actually one of the original railroad track. You'll notice it's a smaller railroad track. This is the actual original piece of a railroad track that ran through Kansas. I got it from a farmer. I traded him a jaw harp. So I'm wondering, should I see if I can take this out on the anvil? Oh, look at that. It's already taking the dish out. Now, when you do this, it may loosen up the crimp, which I'm betting it will. Crimp is moving. There's a little gap next to the crimp. Let's see if we can take that right out of there. Now, that's a livable dish. Before, it was bowed almost like a C. Let's see if we can take it out just a little bit further. A little bit more. I am not a trained blacksmith, but do know a little bit about anvils. Taking that dish out a little bit. And we're already, you'll notice the reed is already shooting off on one side when I'm doing this. So I'm going to take this dish out. That may be about as far as we're going to get it. We'll see. There we go. That's much, much flatter than it was before. There's a little bit of a wave here. I'll lay it on the anvil. I'll see. I can see there's a little bit of a gap there. I'll see if I can take that out. I'm not going to just beat this harp to death. If I can get it, ooh, there we go. If I can get it reasonably flat, I'll be good with that. Now, this reed did loosen up quite a bit. So I see that reed is loose. What they did when they made this is they cut the track too wide and then continued to crimp it till that crimp was closed, and that crimp actually deformed the whole instrument. Let's see if we can just tap it a little bit. Now the reed, we're crimping it in there. This is working, but it's still sitting off to one side. So let's finish this crimp. I'm just using a little version of a tinner or jeweler's hammer. Tap edges of that. It's feeling better. I still see there's a large gap right there. We'll see if we can do this without deforming this too much. I'm going to be using a flat punch. There's probably a better technical name for this. If you know the actual technical name for that tool, please comment it below. There we go. That's not moving. I'm still seeing a gap there. We're not trying to make this like a $100 bargain here. We're trying to get this harp back to its original playability. Now I see the reed is shooting off at an angle here. We can get rid of the flatting anvil here. Bring in the Rajasthani anvil. Let's see. Most of fixing a harp is seeing what needs done. So I see that the reed is off here at an angle. This part of the reed, or this part of the frame, needs moved out a little bit. And one of the ways I can do that is I can lay it on here. I'll tap it, and it is going to move that guy right there. See if we can do this. Just little taps first. We don't want to go too much. That tip needs to move just a little bit more. A simple harp fix. A simple harp. That reed's still moving. See if I can center it in there and remedy the crimp. It's always hard to get one to crimp when you have gaps like that on the side. Better. When I'm moving the frame, especially pounding it flat, it's going to cause this crimp to weaken or loosen. We don't ever want to cut that wide of a channel. Only cut exactly what you need for a reed. Okay, we're not going to get perfect gaps on this. We're just going to get as good as they get. See if I can move that in just a little bit. See if we can move it just a little bit more. I'll get the gap set where I want. Oh, a little bit too far. I'll get the gap set kind of where I want before I worry about bending the other. We're getting better. We're not going for perfect on this. We're just going for workable. Can it work like it did before? I don't know if this harp ever worked really well. This harp may have been ran over. It may have been sat on. You never know with this. I'm going to go a little bit at a time. Here we go. That's semi-consistent. Now, I've got okay gaps there. Let's see if we can compress them just a little bit more before I try to make this bend on the trigger. Okay, now I have my custom vice jaws. They are milled out for triangular stock, and then the ones here very much on the end. Here, I'll get you a little bit closer. If you look there, the ones on the end, I actually did those with a square file followed by a 3 square file to knock off the end. But let's just get into it. Let's see if we can compress these gaps a little bit. I'll hold it toward a window or white lit wall. See where I'm at. Now this can cause my reed to loosen, especially if my track is too wide, which we started off with the track being too wide. I'll use my smaller pliers. These are an 8-inch. I was using a 10-inch plier before. Now harps I make, I do all the adjustments on here and with other means. For this one, these rough adjustments I can just make with pliers, I think. Some of these, especially Austrian pattern harps, sometimes are made with harp making pliers. I don't know if you can see me or not. We'll see here. Just don't want to go too far. It's easier to go a little bit at a time than to go all at once. Okay, there's one edge that's hidden, and it's right there. We just need a little teeny spread. We're going to spread the whole frame. Just a little bit. Okay, these are not super high quality harps, so we're not going for the best. Oh, I've been up here. You may not have been able to see. So I'm not going for the best gaps in the world. I'm just going to, this is probably better gaps than ever were on this harp to begin with. Let's come back over here. Let's see if we can straighten this out now. I'm going to try to do some cold bending. If spring steel feels like it won't yield, do not cold bend it. We're going to do some hot bending, so we'll just feel out and see what the harp wants. Okay, so some tools I have here. I have the harp. We're going to try to bend this trigger here. And the tools I have here is, in case we need to heat up, I have a little micro torch that doesn't always strike first time. Little butane torch. I have my old pickle jar full of water. I have some various pliers that I use. One is smooth jaw pliers. I took a very small, dainty 6-inch pair of pliers. These are ones with really dainty noses on them. I actually found these inside of an old furnace I was removing. And I ground off all the serrations off the end of there, so I have a totally smooth jaw set of pliers so that I can hold the reed where I want to make the bend. Then I also have a smooth jaw pair of needle nose pliers. These are, I might have gave 50 cents for these at a garage sale, and then I annealed them through my process of through the process of annealing, heating them up with a torch, which the link was posted earlier. I'll post it in the description as well. And then I filed off all the teeth. And then I have a little nice pair of loop making pliers. These actually might be some pliers for making fishing lures, I'm not sure, but they are smooth and rounded. And then I also have, these are loop or ring making pliers. You can get ones that are smooth or ones that have steps. These ones have 3 different steps. And then the actual jaw, there is a cup. There we go, you can see that there. And let's first see, we're first gonna see if I can make this bend. So what I'm gonna first do is I'm gonna mark the end of my decks. So I'm gonna mark the end of where the decks are at, because I don't want this bend to occur within the decks. I want it to occur afterward, and that's about where the bend was before. Got that, got it marked. I'm just going to move these in front of the deck, and I'm going to apply light pressure and see if it yields. And it's going very, very easy. Now I'm gonna go slow. You're not gonna break. Now if I applied light pressure and it didn't seem like it wanted to move, I would not continue to try that. I would heat them up with the torch. Okay, we're gonna need to go just a little bit further. I see that this part is flattened too. Let's bring it back maybe to where it needs to be. Don't break, don't break. Okay, we're getting a little bit better. Move this back even. I'm gonna see if I can get that even with the deck. There we go. How are we going here? I can see I'm moving off at an angle. At the end, I'm going to correct that and make it perpendicular. Let's see if I can just get the shape I'm looking for here. I'm just gonna apply a little bit more light pressure. Move it just a little bit. You got it. You got to talk nice to the heart. Nice things will happen. Okay, I like that right there. That looks good. Now, what I don't like is I don't like it off at an angle. That's going to cause clicking. So I'm going to need to bring this up perpendicular-ish to the frame. So look at which way I need to go. I'm off this way. It needs to move this way. So I'm going to clamp this. I'm going to lightly apply pressure now. With a lot of reed material, you're going to have to do this hot bending. Oh, I went too far. It's kind of interesting doing this behind the camera. I'm used to having my head directly in front. And this reed is so super soft. I don't even know if this is actual spring steel material. A lot of these old antique harps, the spring steel isn't isn't as springy as modern spring steel. It's super easy. I keep going too far, so I want to be careful doing this that I don't work harden the reed. Okay, now I'm moving again. There we go. The reed itself actually moved. There, I'm just going to do some light re-crimping of the reed. That's why whenever you make a harp, you always want to be careful never to grind the reed channel too far, because that causes it to loosen easily. When crimping, your reed may move. Little taps. Okay, we look like we're pretty well, from my angle, we're perpendicular. There we go. My perspective, we're perpendicular. Reed needs coming back a little bit more. You can do it, Reed. Okay. There we go. Now, let's reform this right here. I'll take the making pliers and see if this is soft enough that it'll reform. I'm just going to put it in the one that fits it. There we go. And I don't like the feeling of that. We're going to give it a little bit of heat from the butane torch, if I can get it lit. I buy cheap butane torches. I should probably buy an expensive one. Careful not to burn yourself. And we're always, when we're in the shop working on harps, we're always wearing safety glasses. So I'll grab it with my smooth jaw pliers here. I'm going to do this sideways. I'm going to heat up the inside of this, and I'm going to crimp it into a teardrop shape pattern. Now you may or may not be able to see this. See, we are right there. I want to finalize that loop there. So I'm going to heat up just the back side of it. Just a wee bit. Apply a little bit of pressure, a little bit more. Now we're getting to where we need, I think. Let's go just a little bit further. Pickle jar. I really didn't heat that up even as much as I would doing one of my reeds. I just heated it up enough to make it nice and pliable, and I think we can live with that. Let's see if we can get an ear on this, see if we can get the sound on it, see if it needs any more adjustment. And if you're working with fire in the shop, a good thing to have is, of course, going to be fire extinguishers. So we'll go over, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on shop safety, but be safe, be smart when you're working with tools. Let's see if we can get an ear on this. Now, I've got a little bit of clickiness there, but where's it coming from? I am a little bit closer on this side, so we're just going to see if we can't move that out just a mite bit. It has a very pronounced draw start. Now I can take that draw start out of there if I move the reed back. The reed is sitting in front of the deck right there. We'll see if we can take it out without destroying the crimp, because we will have cleaner, stronger sound if we're sitting even with the decks. Looks like sighting down it, it's going to be pretty even. Yeah, we're still sitting in front of the deck. I can feel it. Oh, we are, I see there. Back just a little bit further. Wonder if we can go a little bit tighter. The reed, as I'm playing it, is creeping back in front of the deck here. The spring steel, as it is vibrating, is trying to straighten itself. We'll see if we can keep it bent even with the frame. And I always try to go for higher quality on these harps. Now I'm about high. That might be as good a sound as we're going to get out of this. Let's see if I can go a little tighter on this side. There's just not a lot of integrity left to this with the reed being done like it is. There's a little burr. Oh, we can pick this out. There's a little burr right there. Let's see if we can file that out of there. Got myself a little micro file, a Swedish Grobé file, knife blade, knife edge file that I filed the safe side on one side and left the other side file worthy. So let's see if we can take that off there. You hear Diesel, the dog over there, chewing on a beef bone. Just a little knobber right there. Let's see what we can do about this. Just gonna take an old piece of spring steel from a reed that I cut off there. You can see that little knob right there. It might be a little bit awkward to do with a camera. Let's see if we can do it. Yeah, there is some roughness along there. Right. I think this harp's always going to have a draw start. I keep moving the reed back and it keeps springing back in front. Even with it behind, I can start off with it behind. Yeah, on the inward stroke, I'm pretty good. On the outward stroke, I got some stickiness. So let's go ahead and we're gonna smooth this just a little bit. So what I've got here is I've just got a rotary tool with a little sanding sponge in there. So I'm going to use that. We're gonna buff this just a bit, make it nice and smooth. I don't like a harp trigger where it is rough against the finger. That causes pinging. You'll hear it as a zing, zing, zing when you're playing, your finger brushing across that roughness. So we're just gonna polish this up just a little bit. You don't have to get real extreme. Feel it with your finger. Does it feel smooth? We're just trying to look, trying to listen, and we're gonna get this harp as playable as possible. However, this is not a super high quality harp with modern spring steel in it. This is an antique England harp, so as you know, when you buy these antique harps on the internet, they can be a little bit dull sounding, especially when the gaps are super inconsistent, and also when your gaps or your decks aren't sharpened, because this is a very dull edge. Sharp edges make sharp sound, tight gaps make sensitive sound, proper alignment makes clean sound. However, this one is probably always going to have a draw start. That reed, every time I bend it back to where it's straight in line, it straightens itself out so it's slightly in front. So we're gonna leave it there. It's not playing awful for an antique harp. Now the outward stroke isn't as bad anymore either. Yeah, that's not bad for an antique harp with larger gaps, unsharpened reed, and unsharpened tongue. You can look at the edge of this reed. Instead of having edge ground on it, it's completely flat. It's at a 90-degree angle. So when you have, we'll just draw ourselves a nice little picture here. What you want in your harp is you want nice, there's some harp theory here. You want nice sharp edges of the deck, and then you want a nice sharp edge of a trigger that is right in line with where the plane that those decks are on. This is a view from the end. And when I say sharp angle, but the edge is actually not sharp and won't cut at all. Whenever I grind and hone my harp reeds, I'll grind that pretty sharp, and then I dull it on super fine grit diamond hones. So you got the sharp angle without a sharp edge, and you never want to burn it. What we have for this harp is more like this. We do not have sharp edges of the deck. These edges of the deck here, that's a horrible picture, but you get the gist of it. The edges of this are not sharp, and then the edge of the reed or tongue isn't sharp either. These are square. See here we have sharp, nice angle. Now you can go grinding both edges. I prefer to leave back flat and grind one edge because you always know where this is and this doesn't waver. But what we have here is this is a square angle, so we're gonna have a duller sound out of this harp. Now I could tighten these gaps up, and the harp will get a little bit more sensitive, but it's never gonna have that nice crisp sound of a modern harp. And this spring steel, this is not a modern spring steel. This is a springy metal, but it's not like the modern super high quality spring steel I use and many other makers use. So I say this is acceptable for a harp fix. It came to us, the trigger of it was bent completely flat. It was the whole frame of it. Now I didn't get it perfect, but I got it okay-ish. It was dished like a bowl. We had big gaps shooting off to the side. So this isn't awful. It's not the highest quality harp in the world, but I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I'm not going to charge the follower customer much for this. Anyways, that wraps it up for today's harp fix. If you have any harps that you want us to take a look at and fix, you can shoot us an email at theharpery@gmail.com. If you have any harp fixing or harp building specific questions, just shoot me a comment below or comment your thoughts. Have you tried fixing a harp? A harp like this, they're not expensive. It wasn't high quality to begin with, so this is a good place to start when you get into working harps. And you'll find out what I'm talking about when the reed channel isn't cut very precise. You get a lot of movement. So yeah, it wasn't bad.